Minecraft Update 1.21.4 is here, and it brings the Pale Garden in all its features. The Pale Garden itself being home to the pale oak trees and the eye blossoms, along with the new pale moss blocks, which is just basically the normal moss block, just pale. And ultimately, to find this, you can either use the seed that's in the changelog or just find a dark oak forest. 9 times out of 10, you'll find a pale oak forest connected to it, mainly because this is a variation of the dark oak forest. This feels more like a forest than a garden. And as it's becoming nighttime, we're gonna explore some more features of the pale garden, starting with the eye blossom. This has 2 different forms. The first form, of course, being its closed form, where you get it during the day. And with this form, you can craft yourself some gray dye. And then you have the open form, which you can be used to craft orange dye. Also, since it's nighttime, there's one other feature we need to look at, and it's not the beautiful particles coming from the leaves. Instead, the Creaking, which its eyes look phenomenal with this shader pack. The Creaking is the newest hostile mob, and it moves so creepily, it can only attack you if you're looking away from it. The moment you look at it, it stops kind of like the Boo Ghost from Mario. If you hit the Creaking, it will guide you back to its Creaking heart. So we make our way from the Creaking over to this tree where the heart was, and you'll see if you hit the Creaking, you will have this orange stuff form on the tree. And if you attack this, or hit it, whatever you want to call it, with anything, it doesn't need to be specifically an axe or anything, you get a resin clump. And that is because whenever you attack the Creaking and it guides you back to its Creaking heart, the Creaking heart can form resin. Also worth noting, in order for a Creaking to spawn, the player's got to be at 12 blocks from the Creaking heart. As long as the player stays within 32 blocks of said Creaking heart, the Creaking will stay spawned in. And let's say you got bored and wanted to break the Creaking heart, the Creaking itself will crumble down just like that. And the Creaking heart will drop resin clumps, unless you hit it with Silk Touch, and then the heart itself will drop. Also worth mentioning, when you break the Creaking heart with or without Silk Touch, it will drop upwards of 20 to 24 experience. And while regular animals can't spawn here during the day, hostile mobs can spawn here during the night. So let's get rid of this skeleton. For the resin, you can take 9 resin clumps and turn it into a single block of resin, which you can then break with just your hand, and it is the most satisfying block to break in Minecraft, I think. And by taking a block of resin, putting it in between 2 pale oak logs in the crafting table, you get yourself a Creaking heart. You can then activate that Creaking heart by placing it in between 2 pale oak logs. The Creaking heart also makes this noise when you try to break it. And using the Creaking heart, some redstone wolves, you can make a semi-automatic Creaking resin farm. So once you have a Creaking that spawns inside of this, and I'll make a full video on this eventually, I'm still working out a few kinks with it, but you want to go ahead, get the dogs to stand up, and once you punch it, the wolves will start attacking it, and you can just go out while they attack, and using a basic redstone clock, you can have the logs on top of the Creaking heart move, and as resin forms, it immediately goes off and goes down into a chest down below here. And it's just, you just leave this running overnight, and you should have around a stack plus of resin when you're done. The only downside is you do need to punch the Creaking every so often to make sure the wolves attack. I will make a full video on this once I work out the kinks. Alternatively, you can just build a pillar like that and just hit the Creaking until the resin forms. And once it's filled with resin, just go ahead and break it all off and repeat the process over and over. The biggest thing is just make sure you're not hitting the Creaking with any of your tools like your sword or anything. You don't want to waste durability just hitting something that can't die. And I mean, even with this design, if you have at least have a wolf, you can have the wolf attack it. And over a course of a night, I got 2 stacks and 33. We talked about how for the resin clumps, you can put them in the 9x9 grid of the crafting table and get a block of resin, but you can also go ahead and smelt them in a normal furnace, and then you'll get the resin brick item, which when crafted in a 2x2 grid, you get resin bricks. I also forgot to mention, you can place the resin clumps down on any surface, and it looks pretty cool. As with any stone item, you can chuck it into the stone cutter. Then you can get the stairs, slabs, a chiseled variant, and the wall. I feel it goes without saying, the pale oak wood does have its wood set like any other wood block. So yeah, not much to say here, although I love that we have a white wood. It looks amazing. This door would look great on a dungeon. These trapdoors, beautiful. And if you ever need to collect the pale wood, you just got to grow a pale oak tree, which requires a 2x2 tree grid thing like this, and there you go. And as with any other moss block, you can go ahead and bone meal the pale moss block to get more pale moss carpets and more of the pale moss itself. For the pale hanging moss, you can also go ahead and bone meal that to get some of that to grow. Just keep in mind you need either a Silk Touch item or shears to get that. And if you want to get the eye blossom flowers, all you got to do is go ahead and bone meal the grass in the Pale Gardens. Couple final things to note. Bees will now get the wither effect if fed a wither rose from the player. These are also drawn to the open eye blossom, while the closed eye blossom does nothing. And if you feed a bee the open eye blossom, it will get poisoned. Same thing for if they touch it, they will just get poisoned from it. And when wearing a carved pumpkin head, the creaking does not stop, it just keeps charging at you. Potions of harming can also damage the creaking. Villagers are also scared of the creaking and will run away. And for the final change, they removed Herobrine. Let me know what you think of the Pale Garden in the winter drop update, and what is your favorite feature? What's your least favorite feature? With that said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Check out the last episode of the guide. Have a nice day.